My name's Ryan. I'm 35. I live in SLC. I've known I'm autistic for about 2 years. How I came to understand that was I had a lot of difficulties in my life that I didn't always understand. And when I was younger, I was diagnosed with depression and then anxiety, and then in my early 20s, OCD, and then in my late 20s, PTSD. And in my early 30s, I was still having a lot of interpersonal problems, so I went back to therapy. And we were talking about, what's going on with these. Basically, I don't have any biological family relationships left. So we were talking about what happens when you talk to your family. And I was explaining they get really enraged at times I don't understand and tell me that I mean something other than I'm saying. And once that accusation comes out, I I rarely can recover that narrative. It's just that's the story now. I'm basically under citizen's arrest getting pressed and pressed to make a confession about something that I didn't do. So the therapist mentioned, hey, that kind of sounds like a double empathy problem. And I said, fantastic. What's a double empathy problem? And so we started learning about, well, when an autistic person communicates with a non autistic person, they can have these kind of conflicts. Exactly the kind where they say, but what do you mean by that? And I respond, I mean those words in that order because I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea how you've decided that an unspoken concept must be present because it wasn't spoken. So how is it that you know that's there? That question's not valid to them, right? That's just more, it's an act of war. It's just that you've fired back once they've fired. So, okay, let's entertain that one of these parties is autistic. Yeah, it's probably the person who has watched season 7 of The Simpsons hundreds of times. I want to hear the pauses between the lines and hit them like I'm singing along to a song almost. And I love the humor and I love the colors. And so that's when we started doing things like Rad's test, starting to treat myself, starting to behave as if I am autistic. And I found, oh, I'm starting to get a lot of relief from things like being in dim rooms or being able to stim or something in a way that would normally upset people. The big experience that it illuminated for me, though, was about 10 years ago when I experienced something that I called turbo depression, because it was a level of depression beyond anything I had experienced in my life. I had switched jobs and I was working at a call center with this massive open floor plan, constant dinging, constant lights, very low support for like how complex of work it was. Tough environment, and I stopped being able to go in, and I felt really bad because my family shames not laboring, and I didn't understand why I couldn't function like my peers. Some of these people were classmates of mine. We had trained up together, and I just found I suddenly can't do this, and I don't know why. And it was a level of exhaustion where weeks into that, I still felt like no amount of sleep could make me feel rested. That's just not going to come. And I didn't know how long it was going to last. I didn't know how to fix it, and I didn't know what was happening to me. So years later, when we started, saying let's really start talking to other autistics and see what their experiences are like, and they started talking about burnout, and they started talking about those things that had happened to me. And that was one of many experiences I had where I'm like, oh, someone else has gone through this. It used to be a joke amongst my friends growing up that when we were doing something stupid, I would get in special extra trouble. They'd line us all up and start telling us, don't you be doing that at school. And then they would kind of see me and go, and you! And then I would get like super extra trouble. Those experiences make a lot more sense to me now. Or the teacher would just scream that my facial expression was inappropriate. So I spent a really long time not understanding what was happening and believing that something might be seriously poisoned in my soul because I didn't have the understanding of autism. But that really wasn't the issue because I wasn't hurting people. I was trying to express myself. And I do that a little differently because I'm autistic. And the intolerance, aggression, abuse, cruelty that I was met with for trying to speak. I don't have a word for that, but I don't think that's a kind of thing that we'd be enthusiastic to permit if we wanted a good society. I think that if we wanted to build better lives for everybody around us, we would say that maybe that kind of behavior is not the kind that we should accept in our community. What have you learned about your mask and what it looks like? Characteristics of when you are masking. I don't I don't know a lot about it because masking is a tiny bit disanalogous in my mind. It's a pretty appropriate analogy for what's going on, but it's not that, in my experience, it's not that we take behavior A and we replace it with behavior B instead. And the B behavior is the mask and the A behavior is kind of the baseline. It's not so much that. I think people will know what I mean when I say that rather than that model of replacing behavior A with behavior B, what it feels like is more like here is behavior A. Don't ever let someone see you doing that. And so it doesn't mean stim differently. It means do not stim here, right? And regardless of if those words were spoken literally to many of us, I think many of us have that sentence in our inner monologues. Don't ever let anyone see you doing that. So what I've noticed about my mask is that I'm not entirely sure what it consists in besides negation. It's just the rejection of behaviors that, in my experience, are probably going to be unsafe to do. I can feel sometimes people responding like I'm acting weird, and it's because I kind of am. I'm acting weird because this feels unsafe to me. People around me don't respond to that, and they just detect something's different, be on guard, defend. So I don't know a ton about it, what it looks like. I just know that it's when I cannot do certain things. And certain things is basically anything that's going to let them know I'm not just like them. So hands are going to be in my pockets, probably going to be looking down, probably going to have headphones on, probably going to try to not engage. It's because of that sensation. It's not that I feel there are even safe behaviors to do in a lot of those situations. It's just that do not let them see who you are. It's not safe. Be present. Stand in the room, but hide while you are standing in front of them. What looks or feels different about being unmasked? Let's divide this into two perspectives. My perspective at home is that unmasking is sweet. I could expect 2 hours in which to enjoy something I like to do without being harassed. I can regulate myself, but that's unmasking at home. The other thing is unmasking in public. And so I'll tell you what that's like. I was threatened in that parking lot there. I was assaulted in that parking lot. Cop followed me into the bathroom at the airport with a AR. This is like last 12 months things. This is not like a lifetime of experiences. This is what it's been like going out recently. And so when you're unmasked in public, people do feel entitled to show rage to you. They feel entitled to protect the integrity of things from you. I'm curious if other autistics feel that, if they're familiar with that. Unmasking at home? Fantastic. When I'm out, though, I might have to tell somebody, leave me alone. And obviously that attitude is not a socially positive one, but also what am I going to do when confronted with literal violence on the street? It's not safe. What do you wish you could tell everyone about the experience of masking? You're jumping at shadows. What it would be like if I was permitted to unmask all the time would not be as scary as you're making it out to be. It would not be as damaging, threatening to the integrity of institutions. It would not be as unsafe. It would not, none of these things would be true if you would actually let us experience what it is like to communicate with one another. But there's this massive fear of, but what if the bad thing happens? And I'm asking you, what bad thing? Being spoken to by an autistic person? Because there is no bad thing. So maybe reel in some of that fear, or maybe substantiate it. Tell me what it is you are so afraid of that I cannot move my arm. And if the answer is there's nothing there, then maybe I can move my arm that way. Maybe that's not a problem. Maybe this is an arbitrary social rule being enforced by someone who has the ability to kind of steamroll me verbally so I can't really push back. Yeah, it's frustrating to have that fear be so centered that my life needs to be smaller to make room for other people's fear, not for their safety, not for their well-being, and not for their lives, but for a manufactured or contrived discomfort. The first thing I would tell a younger self is, little bro, you are autistic. That means a couple of things about you and how your brain and body work. The kind of curiosity and passion you show for things you're interested in is a really cool trait of yours. It's a very human thing to be as curious as you are about how things around you are functioning. That's cool. Don't stop playing Magic. They are wrong for making fun of you. It is a complex and fun game. You think about it well, and it actually regulates you to think through a game. So don't put that down. Oh, put your cards in sleeves too. What are you doing? Sleeve those things up. Sleeve them up. The other thing is that people are going to tell you a lot of things that don't make sense, and those things make exactly as little sense as you think they do. You're not wrong. And I guess, oh, you don't know this. All of The Simpsons is streaming on the TV now. Literally, you can start it at season 1, episode 1, and just let it roll through season 36. It hasn't stopped, man. It hasn't even stopped yet. I'm 35 and it's still going on. So there's more Simpsons you haven't seen than Simpsons that you know. You got stuff to look forward to. Yeah. It's going to turn out pretty different than you expect, but it's not entirely bad. But it's going to be different. All right, I'm going to go watch Simpsons.